Hi all, thanks for joining us tonight. I am Vayia and I work at AbilityNet. My current job title is Accessibility and Usability Consultant, and I will explain what this means in a moment. This evening, I wish to contribute to this meetup on user research with older people with a talk about facilitating usability testing sessions with Silver Surfers. I will start with a short introduction about myself and AbilityNet. I will talk about some user research projects that we carried out since December 2021. I will cover some of the main lessons that my team and I learned from these projects and share with you the main things that we will try to do differently next time. So a little bit about who AbilityNet are, for those who may not have heard about us before. AbilityNet is a UK charity. Our vision is a digital world that is accessible to all. We support people of any age, living with any disability or impairment, to use technology to achieve their goals at home, at work, and in education. And how do we do this? We do it by offering a number of services. So free expert resources so that everyone can get the most from their electronic devices. These are available on our website, include things like fact sheets, webinars, and My Computer My Way, are simple how-to guides to make devices easier to use. We also have a network of volunteers who provide free IT support to older people and to disabled people of any age, anywhere in the UK. The Workspace Services team focuses on disability inclusion in the workplace. The DSA and Student Services team assist disabled students to apply for the Disabled Students Allowance support to cover study-related costs. We also organize the TechShare Pro, which is a yearly gathering of accessibility and inclusion professionals for knowledge sharing. This year's TechShare Pro will take place online on the 15th, 16th, and 17th of November. So please go to the website to find out more and get your early bird tickets. And the Digital Accessibility Services is the team I'm part of. So let's look at the things we do on the next slide. This team has worked in accessibility for 20 years, helping businesses and not-for-profit organizations of all sizes. Digital accessibility and usability consultants like myself ensure that websites, apps, and other digital services are accessible by running full accessibility audits and usable by running usability testing. Our accessibility design reviews, it means that we review design plans and wireframes, and then we can help teams to understand how to incorporate accessibility right from the start. We also offer accessibility consultancy, where we collaborate with digital teams to develop complete digital accessibility strategies. Our accessibility accreditation is a seal of approval, which demonstrates compliance and commitment to digital accessibility. We also offer document remediation, where we take existing documents and complete checks on the content to make sure that they meet required standards of accessibility. We offer accessibility training. We deliver webinars and workshops on how to include accessibility within organizations and upskill teams. And we also run diverse user research, where we check the real world accessibility and usability of websites and apps. On the slide here, we have the contact details for AbilityNet, and all of this will be accessible when the copy of the slide deck becomes available to you. A little bit about myself. In what now feels like a previous life, I studied archaeology. As I was researching for and writing up my PhD thesis on Roman pottery, I got sidetracked by the possibilities that the internet has to offer. and I decided to pursue a career in web development. I have worked in the digital content profession since 2000. And after the birth of my daughter, I studied adult education principles with the National Childbirth Trust and facilitated antenatal preparation sessions for the charity for 10 years. These in-person and online sessions, combined with my digital content work, reinforced my belief that by respecting differences and by offering options, people without and with disabilities can contribute towards and benefit from equitable experiences. My commitment to the digital accessibility work grew stronger, and I joined AbilityNet at the beginning of 2021. Here you will find the slide with my contact details. Please feel free to contact me on Twitter or email me or link with me on LinkedIn. So at AbilityNet, we have been running user research projects for many years to gather feedback from diverse participants using websites and mobile apps, paying particular attention to how easy or not it is to use features and if there are any accessibility issues. Recently, due to the circumstances, see pandemic and lockdowns, we had to adapt our method from running in-person usability sessions from our London lab to remote sessions. The first half of 2021 was a learning period for both organizers and participants with many technical challenges. But from the beginning of the pandemic compared to the second half of 2021, we noticed a huge increase and a boost in confidence levels of older people using video conferencing platforms. We know that older people are not resistant to technology. They tend to accept and use useful things. And of course, conferencing platforms were one of those useful things as they helped them to stay connected with their families. The participants were given access to websites or mobile apps. Once the testing environment was up and running, we asked the participants to carry out specific tasks. For consistency, during each user research project, we tried to follow a script, which was created during the research design phase and already agreed with clients. To gather a mixture of qualitative and quantitative data, we ran moderated usability testing sessions combined with user interviews. Each session lasted for no more than 60 minutes. In each session, there were 3 people present, the participant, the moderator, and an observer. During the sessions, we followed a user interview guide to ask questions ranging from broad questions to specific questions about the participants' interaction with the product. 2 groups of diverse participants were invited to take part in user research sessions, people with disabilities and older adults. The challenges and outcomes that I'm presenting this evening were those observed during the older adult sessions. So why do we, the team at AbilityNet, support that user research with older adults is so important? Dickinson, Arnott, and Pryor in 2007 reported that researchers interested in older adults and computer systems often comment on the failure of mainstream human-computer interaction to consider people over 60. And according to Silva and Nunes in 2010, older adults are a growing user group for technology, and usability for them is of particular importance, since they often feel handicapped when interacting with technology developed by young people for young people. So there is a failure to consider older people, but as a growing user group for technology, usability for them is of particular importance. So at AbilityNet, we invite people with disabilities and anyone older than 55 years old to register as a user tester in our database. So anyone older than 55 means anyone here, for example, in this meetup session, who was born before 1967. So if that's you, join us. If that's not you, but you know somebody born before 1967, spread the word. We want to include as many older adults in user research as we can. And although we agree that user research with older adults is important, we are also aware that there is a tremendous diversity within the population of older adults. Some can travel to a lab, others cannot. Therefore, it is great that we have the remote sessions and we can include more people from all over the country. But unfortunately, there are other complexities too. Some of these people have access to internet and others don't have access. Some know how to use mobile apps and others struggle. So in our experience, it is the subgroup of younger, older adults, confident users of digital media who wish to take part in remote user research sessions. These are younger seniors, female as well as male. They have an above average formal education and disposable income. They enjoy a high standard of housing with fast internet. They have been online since the 1990s. They have a positive attitude towards digital media, and they perceive themselves as confident users. So these are the characteristics of silver surfer users, a term recurring in research for 2 decades, and it is widely used in the UK, Australia, and some other English-speaking countries to describe the group of confident users of digital media I mentioned before. A very important point to make here is that silver surfers are not representative of senior users in general. So how do we make sure that the broader group of older adults is included in our research projects? This is a topic for a future talk. So what did we learn from running remote sessions, from using the thinking aloud methodology, from having scripted tasks, and from using rating scales to gather feedback? On the left side of this slide, we can see a photo of a rock climber who's climbing a rock face. I added this photo to express what doing remote usability sessions with silver surfers felt like at times. It was challenging to reach the goal, but we got an excellent view when we reached the top of the rock. So in terms of challenges and lessons, let's start with the running remote sessions. Regarding the testing environment, as I mentioned already, silver surfers became confident users of conferencing platforms. However, their confidence was often limited in using the very basic features of the conferencing platforms on desktops or laptops. We faced difficulties when we asked them to download a mobile app and share their mobile screen. We also saw them struggling when we asked them to find the chat panel to copy a web address, which then they had to paste to the address bar of a web browser to view a website, because we know that the chat panel does not create a web link that we can click to be taken automatically to the website. And then once on the website, they would have to share via the share screen function of the conference platform. We had the challenge that participants got lost, could not find the conference platform window again, and to do all of this took a long time, sometimes up to half an hour of the 1 hour session. So this type of difficulties had a knock-on effect on the participants' confidence levels. Older adults, participants of usability testing sessions, tend to blame themselves when things do not go smoothly, apologizing for doing things wrong and for breaking things. And even when solutions were found and the sessions could go ahead, we noticed that the participants' satisfaction levels about the whole experience was unsurprisingly low. So this produced unreliable findings, as the reported dissatisfaction was caused by platform issues and not by the product that we were actually testing. So the lessons we took from these challenges was that we had the best sessions when the moderator was sharing the screen and was in control of the product, whether that was a website or a mobile app. After the initial introductions, the session could start and run smoothly. But in cases where we absolutely needed the participants to show us how they would use a product, we learned that using web-based prototypes, for example, a prototype of a mobile app, or even screenshots of the screens of a mobile app, was easier than using a physical mobile device. So the definite lesson from here is that using a web browser seems to be the safest testing environment for remote usability sessions. When it comes to the thinking aloud methodology, although we explained during the initial introductions the why and how they should follow the thinking aloud methodology, for us to be able to follow their thought process during the tasks, we had to give constant reminders to the participants to do so. And this created an exam-like atmosphere, which increased feelings of anxiety. And we had to very often to reassure the participants that we were not testing them. And of course, the result, big challenge for us, was participant fatigue, which is not desirable during user research sessions. When it comes to lessons from these challenges, we learned that older adults need more time than younger adults to complete tasks. And that also means that older participants need extra time to think. And we need always to remember not to interrupt their line of thought. And also we learned that having a natural conversation instead, in order to get a review of their thought process after each task, was actually able to give us the information that we needed. Regarding the scripted tasks for the purpose of consistency, already I have mentioned that older adults need more time than younger adults to complete tasks. So that, of course, took longer to complete tasks following the scripted, the script. And some of the tasks written to answer the research objectives felt irrelevant to the participants' reality. Some of the reasons for this, sometimes maybe jargon was used to refer to app components, and other times an important task, for example, blocking a bank card from being used, would immediately receive a comment like, I would never use an app to do this. I would either go straight to the bank branch or I would call somebody. I prefer to talk to a person. So these kind of observations meant that the research project was not initially designed in the most user-centered way. But perhaps the project was more concentrated on meeting the research objectives. So the lessons taken from these challenges, we learned that we sometimes ended up having gaps in data, which of course complicates the analysis and synthesis phase of the project. And also we learned that by trying to maintain focus and structure during the session, we ended up missing opportunities to listen carefully to comparisons with previous experiences, which could be translated to valid suggestions for digital product improvements, often using the participants' codes in the final report. And for rating scales, I refer here to the typical 1 to 5 rating scale for recording, for example, confidence levels, where 1 is for I feel very confident, 2 I feel somewhat confident, 3 I feel neither confident or nor unconfident, 4 I feel somewhat confident, and 5 very confident. Already you can see the challenge. Some participants found listening to these rating scales extremely confusing. They could not understand the purpose of them. By the time we finished explaining what 1 was for, what 2 was for, they could not remember the meaning of the numbers. So, and Despite the confusion, some participants gave us a score anyway in their effort to comply and complete the task. Others would give us a score that clearly was not related to a particular task, but to the whole experience. For example, a task might have been particularly challenging to complete, but the score was a positive one, just to please the moderator or to express the general feeling of satisfaction in taking part in a useful usability session. And during the after-task interview questions, sometimes it was hard for participants to remember details of the task-related experiences. The lessons we are taking away from these challenges is that sticking to rating scales, which are part of the script, sometimes produce incomplete data. And in some cases, the moderator and the observer going through the notes would notice that observations and actual scores did not match. So what will we do differently? In general, the same good practices valid for usability testing with mainstream users also apply to usability testing with older adults. And the difference lies in the fact that those guidelines become very important when we test with older adults. The image to the left of this slide shows the top of a white sail of a sailboat with clear blue skies behind it. I have added this picture because I wish to share with you now the things that we will do in a different way to hopefully have a bit more of plain sailing in future projects. So for the remote sessions, for future user research projects, we will give preference to sessions where the moderator is in the control of the testing environment, using a web-based prototype of the digital product. For the think aloud methodology, we will avoid the conventional thinking aloud methodology and instead have a natural conversation with the participants. For the scripts, we will run flexible sessions with a script as a guide, but we will seize the opportunity to listen carefully to comparisons with previous experiences that Silver Surface may have had, and so generously always want to share during the sessions and use their often powerful quotes and insights to campaign for further diverse and inclusive research. And when it comes to data gathering and feedback gathering, we will simplify the rating scales we use and aim for getting feedback after every task, going through the steps, taking to complete the task, again, to make things we are talking about concrete and clear. So this is now time to offer my thank yous. First of all, thank you all of you who have joined the session tonight and for caring about inclusive user research. I would like to thank AbilityNet and David, the head of my department, for offering me the opportunity to take part in this meetup session. Chloe, my co-speaker, she will share her experience with us this evening. The organizers of the meetup, Swetha, Rick, Anya, Ben from Zebra People for sponsoring the meetup, and of course, Lina and Chris from User Experience Professionals Association UK for giving us access to the Zoom account. These are my contact details. Again, you will get access to these when the slide is shared with you. Please do stay in touch. And I will now go to my questions slide.
Amazing. Thank you, Vayia. That was very detailed. And thanks for going through the challenges for each aspect, as well as the learnings or lessons. I had a question. I kind of have two questions. Let me see if I can weave them in. When you think about like older people and Silver Surfers, like, did the sample of participants that you spoke with or you tend to speak with spontaneously tend to have accessibility needs, and how do you cater for that?
Okay, yeah, we have kind of decided to classify anyone older than 55 years old as a silver surfer, because that's the kind of recognized window when people start showing signs of aging, and then the kind of borders between older adult users and disabled people start to become a bit more blurred. So, but we to basically have very clear and concrete data, we have separated the disabled users from silver surfers, the adult, older adult users, so that we could actually compare the two groups separately, so that we don't actually mix the data, because of course that's open to risky conclusions. So definitely two separated groups. And what I've mentioned here tonight is specifically from the silver surfer users' experiences. I hope that answers the question.
Yeah, thank you for clarifying how, you proactively decided they're separate groups and the benefits of like looking at them separately and thinking about them separately, but still thinking about both those groups. I also, while we're talking about accessibility, realized that I forgot to mention this. For those of you who are savvy enough with Zoom, we have turned on captioning just to make our events more accessible. So if you can't see them automatically, you'll need to go to more options and say show subtitles or something like that. So please try that out, and hopefully that makes the event more accessible to you. And also, if you are on Twitter, there is a hashtag called #YouAreOlderPeople. Not that we are older people, but we're all going to be older people at some point. So that was a funny hashtag I found. Anya, any questions from the group?
Yeah, I think I want to follow up with the question from Snigdha. Thank you for that question. So first of all, she said that thank you for the presentation, very interesting. And the question is actually a little bit similar to Sweta's, but is a bit broader. So Snigdha's question is, how do you think these challenges and lessons learned would differ or not for harder to reach older populations? So on the one hand, older people with disabilities, but maybe also older people who have like a mistrust of technology or surveillance or research in general.
This is a very good question, and it is perhaps based on assumptions. And generally in user research, we don't like to base answers on assumptions of a moderator or a researcher. So definitely this can be answered if we really run these sessions and we get the data. So because everything was done remotely, of course, there is a lot of data and research for in-person usability sessions. But because we haven't really done any usability testing sessions with those groups that you mentioned, then I really cannot answer this question just from my assumptions. We need to do the usability testing to be able to answer it. So look out for the future projects.
Thank you. I have another question from Jock Stender, and he is asking, is it wise to conduct user testing in the wireframe stage if the audience is cognitively disabled adults? If so, how many individual testers do you recommend?
Okay, so in like a design review stage, of course, the wireframes will exclude user group. For example, they will exclude people who have vision impairments, because we cannot use screen readers to go through a wireframe. Although a wireframe can be translated into code in a separate document, for example, and then those users can use their assistive technology to go through it. So for cognitively disabled adults, it is always useful and wise to include as many groups as we can, even during the design review, the wireframe stage. In terms of how many individual testers I would recommend, there is always the belief that 5 users of each disability group is a good number to aim for, but of course there could be various cycles of 5 users, and the more cycles of testing in different stages of the wireframe, then that is the wisest approach.
Great, thank you. I'm going to go for one more question and let you then answer the questions by typing them in. Just because, you know, I want to give Chloe the opportunity to speak soon. So I have a question from Imran Akhtar, and they're saying users who are older are susceptible to learning difficulties like dementia, early onset dementia, Alzheimer's, etc., which affects an individual's recall. How did you alleviate this risk in your research and make sure the forum is safe?
By really reading clues from the participants, and by trying to, as I said, remove jargon and remind people what the tasks were, having this mutual kind of natural conversation with them. So these were the lessons that we learned from the challenges that we faced. Because, as I said, we went for the scripted kind of version of tasks, and then slowly we saw that this was not working for some participants, and we aimed to have as a flexible approach as possible, giving them perhaps the scripts in writing so that they could read for themselves, that they could refer to the tasks, they could refer to the purpose of the research. So it is really, it comes down to reading what is going on in the virtual room as much as possible. It is not as easy as during in-person sessions, because of course we cannot read the body language so easily. So definitely a challenge is there with remote sessions. We need to have our antennae really switched on to see if people are struggling.
Brilliant, thank you so much. If you could have a look at the questions and answer them, that'd be amazing.
Of course.
Cool, handing over.